Your service here is finished, and you should all run. Malfail.
Hello everyone, Rurikon here with TGN coming at you with my gameplay impressions of Diablo 3 The Ultimate Evil Edition. This title consists essentially of Diablo 3 plus Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls for the consoles. The footage that you guys are watching is for the PlayStation 4 version of the game, and you guys are probably wondering what exactly is different between consoles and PC and between the previous versions of consoles and the Ultimate Evil Edition, and I will be telling you guys throughout the duration of this video. So for starters, differing from the PC, on the console obviously you're going to be using the controller to control your character, so Blizzard wanted to give you a more action experience as opposed to the more tactical experience that you get on the PC, and what I mean by this is that in the console you're actually going to get a zoomed in view of your character, and on account of that they're also adding in a dodge mechanic, because since you're essentially zoomed in closer to your character, you're not going to have as much of an overview of the battlefield as you have on the PC. Therefore, you cannot anticipate your enemies as easily as you can on the PC, so they decided to add in that dodge mechanic, and it is also something that is essentially present in a lot of action games on consoles, is a dodge mechanic, so that is one of the reasons why they decided to do it. Another feature that they have is a fast equip system, so every time that you pick up loot, they don't want you necessarily opening up your inventory and looking through all your loot and doing the whole Tetris thing in your inventory management. In the console version, there's none of that. Your inventory system is a lot more streamlined. You just have a certain number of slots that you can fill up, which I believe is 60, and once you hit that, you're going to have to go ahead and empty your inventory, but up until that, you don't have to worry about playing Tetris with all of your gear and all the stuff that you happen to pick up. There is also a fast equip system, so essentially every time you pick up a piece of loot, it is going to give you a couple of indicators letting you know if there is an advantage in terms of offense, in terms of defense, and it allows you to instantly equip that particular piece of loot if you so desire without even entering your inventory. And the reason why this is important is because the console versions also support couch co-op, so you can essentially be playing 4 players on the same console, and you're not going to be wanting to go through your inventory every 30 seconds or so, because there is obviously going to be a lot of loot. Now, in specifics to the Ultimate Evil Edition, what is that bringing to the console experience that the previous versions did not bring? Well, it's going to update the game with all the Reaper of Souls loot, because as you guys know, there was a big loot overhaul when Reaper of Souls came around. Like, items just became incredibly more powerful with a lot bigger stats and whatnot. And so that stuff is going to be coming to Ultimate Evil Edition as well. So the loot is going to be normalized for Loot 2.0 that you already have on the PC, which also has improved drop rates for legendaries and all that stuff, and rares, and just pretty much you're going to get a ton of loot, and it's going to be useful loot. It is not going to be garbage loot. Like, you're not going to be picking up a legendary that is probably going to be useless for you. As an example, the character that you guys are watching me play, as I was playing through the game, a lot of the game I actually played it using a dagger because it just had a lot of strength attributes and whatnot. Now, one of the main concerns that you have when you are deciding whether or not you prefer to play Diablo 3 on your console or on your PC is going to be the fact that on the consoles the saves are going to be local, therefore they can be more easily exploited in terms of hacking and duping and doing all that crazy stuff. So if you are going to play on the console, I would suggest that you would stick to playing with your closest friends to avoid, damaging your experience by meeting up with cheaters and stuff like that. Whereas on the PC side, of course, you have the closed BattleNet stuff, and all of your saves are actually in Blizzard servers, so it is obviously going to be a lot harder to cheat and whatnot. So if you are planning on playing with randoms and whatnot, you might want to stick to the PC, but if you're planning on playing with close friends, then it should be okay, assuming that none of your friends are really going to cheat or dupe items or do any of that other crazy stuff that you really don't want in your gameplay experience. So something else that is going to be specifically for the, I was going to say next generation consoles, but the proper term at this point is the current generation consoles, is that Diablo 3 is going to be running at 1080p 60 frames per second, and it looks really, really sharp, as you guys can probably tell by looking at the video. Just also take into consideration that obviously YouTube butchers the quality regardless of how much bitrate we put up there. However, I do have to say, even though the game runs mostly at 60 frames a second, I did have a couple of situations where I saw the frames drop, and I was playing by myself, so I can only assume that as you put more players playing on screen, that stuff is going to get even worse. So we can really only say that the game runs mostly at 60 frames a second. It does not run all the time at 60 frames a second, which I kind of feel is to be expected on the consoles anyways. But however, I do have to say that on account of the fact that the game is mostly running offline as opposed to constantly pulling data from the Blizzard servers, I did have a better experience playing on console, because on my PC I've had several occasions, on account of my internet connection not being amazing, I've had several occasions where the game would just like freeze up to load something. And if you happen to be playing a hardcore character, those things can be pretty damn dangerous. Now, for this title, Blizzard also came up with a new feature that essentially makes the whole experience feel even more streamlined and faster paced, and that feature is action combat. Now, action combat separates itself into 3 different categories. So for starters, every time that you kill a monster with traps, like you guys know how I think it's in the catacombs, there's those chains that you can pull and chandeliers will come down and hit monsters. There's a bunch of those spread out through most of Diablo's levels. And as you use those traps and you actually kill monsters with them, what tends to happen is you're going to get a bonus to resource regeneration for a short period of time based on the number of